appreciate him and Craig getting me breakfast at 6 o'clock in the morning. And one time Boomer was busting my chops because I was cutting open a bagel with a knife. And he's like, no, you got to use this fancy bagel cutter thing they had in Al's office. So that was, but you're joining the show. So you guys don't really have many guests, which is a little different from the CBS Sports Radio aspect. And that's really because Al Dukes is a mastermind when it comes to ratings here. But if you guys wanted to get Jose Canseco on the show, who would book him? Would it be you or would it be Al?
I mean, it would be Al, I would think. I think it would be Al. So the Jose Canseco story, do you know that story? But when I tried to get him, is that why you're bringing this
That's
up?
why I bring it up, because Al Hughes was born from Jose Canseco.
Yeah, right. But then I had a Jose Canseco story right before that. So I thought I was going to get him like right before they did, and we were going to be the first person to book him. And what I had was, so this is when I'm producing Joe and Evan. He was going to do a celebrity boxing match. So I got in contact with a guy who ran celebrity boxing, and he told me that he would get me Canseco before anybody else interviewed him. Like right after that, the book, and no one had talked to him. He'd get me Canseco first if we interviewed live on the air Michael Lohan, who was Lindsay Lohan's father. So like, I was like, oh shit. I was like, I can't put Michael Lohan on WFAN. So I was like, all right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to tape it. We're going to pretend that it's live. We're going to hold it. And if we get Canseco, then we'll play it somewhere. It'll be worth it. So that like somewhere in the long lost WFAN archives is a Joe and Evan interview with Michael Lohan, where Joe is like, so tell me about this Lindsay. Like, did you see like her like falling off the deep end, or what was it? Like, what'd you think of Mean Girls? I mean, you okay with the cleavage? Like, so I mean, it was insane. And then Canseco he ended up never coming on. Boomer and Carton ended up getting him. He hung up. That made me even more angry because I was like, shit, if we would have gotten him, we would have gotten more out of him. So just crazy times.
Yeah, I think that's hysterical. And we brought this up to Evan when we had him on, but I think the funniest Joe and Evan moment has to be "Call Me Kate," Caitlyn Jenner revealed to the world. One of the best. I mean, when you heard that, thanks to, I guess, Back After This or Funhouse, how were you just busted in chops? And also, speaking of like Funhouse and just Twitter, how much, easier is it for you guys to catch up on any other musings around the radio world so you can make fun of it the next morning?
Yeah, I mean, that's one great thing about Twitter for sure. I mean, that listening though to that Joe Beningo moment. I mean, of course, I still, it's one of those things that it doesn't get less funny every time that you hear it, because it's also, there's layers to why that's funny, right? Because the other thing is like Joe would just like, that was Joe. That was pure Joe. Like he'd say, oh yeah, she's pretty good. Look at her. Like whatever, like the Telemundo anchor would be on. Oh, look at this one over here. So it was just sort of like perfect how that worked out. But yeah, I mean, Twitter is an interesting place. It's not my favorite place to exist. But for sure, when it comes to like news and audio and things like that, it's obviously a hell of a lot easier to accumulate that stuff, in 2020, 2021 than it was back when, I was sitting there, scouring the internet and cutting tape and all that stuff that I did, in the early 2000s. So it is a great resource.
Yeah. One great thing that we saw on Twitter, April 26th, 2018, you're riding the subway with Al. People are dancing around him, and there was nothing he could do about it. The perfect song. Yeah, part one, part two. I don't know how we didn't hear you laughing hysterically during that.
Oh, yeah, because I didn't want one of them to kick me in the face, I think was the thing. I mean, so we were going to do a draft show at the NFL Experience near Times Square, which no longer exists. I don't think Times Square no longer exists either, quite frankly, these days. But yeah, so anyway, yeah, so it was one of those moments. It just had to happen. Like it was serendipity. It just had to happen. Like Hal and I had to get on that particular subway car with those guys dancing to make him uncomfortable. And I remember, I think the reason why I wasn't laughing too, I was like so focused on getting a good video because I knew how great it would be for the show and how many people would love it. So I was I was locked in, but it never ended. I mean, what those guys were doing, hanging from the ceiling and just getting so close to them and everything, it was that was absolutely fantastic.
So I got two questions for you.
Yeah.
Number one, how many times have you ordered pizza or ordered food to the studio using Joe's voice and tried to pay using
Bravo Pizza.
I mean,
tell him Joe B sent you.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually have not done that. But one thing I have done is I carried on a full conversation with Joe's wife as Joe in the newsroom. So that was my crowning achievement in life I picked up the newsroom phone. It was Terry. She was asking for Joe. I said, all right, let me go get him. And I just picked up the phone. I said, let me see how long I can do this. So I was like, yeah, what's going on? Like, Terry, all the love. And she's talking to me about dinner and what to get at the grocery store. I was like, you know, I don't like that. She was like, oh, yeah, of course you love that. I don't like it anymore. You know, so we were having this conversation on the phone. And I mean, it was probably 5 minutes that I did it. And the phone actually really helps, like, especially like, you know, like the landline phone, you know, when you're on, that masks the voice just enough to really make it sound like the other person. So never ordered any food as Joe Badingo or anybody else, but did talk to his wife for 6 minutes as him.
So outside of Joe's wife, who would you say your favorite type? Is a different type of quality or different type of favorite caller, or the idea of what constituted caller? Some people like to be intellectually challenged. Some people like the jokes, or like the guys or the girls who are trying to call in and be a part of the program. So who are your favorite type of callers, and what type of callers do you think makes the show easier for you?
You know, it's hard to see if I could nail it down. I'm trying to think of a good example, but generally there isn't like a great one person example with this person, but somebody who, you know, is an everyday listener, understands the jokes, understands you, and then can call up and just give you one line of something that can crack us up, you know, and that's someone who's like, you can tell it listens all the time, like could reference something with Al and Bradley Beach or Jerry being negative or whatever, and just calls up, gives you the one line, you know, they're a listener, it adds to the conversation, and then they're gone. So like, and that's a rare one, because generally callers are, I mean, they're tough. I mean, they really are, you know, and there's a big difference between a listener and a caller. You know, the listener is always there. It's loyal. Sometimes a listener never reaches out, you know, but the caller is someone who, you know, wants to be on the air, has got nothing to do, you know, and there's a lot of like just really bad phone calls. And especially since Al hasn't been in the studio screening the calls and Eddie's got a million things to do, he can't be as attentive with the calls. So it's been a little bit tough, but I wish I could give you a better example of what I'm talking about, but it's when I reach over, bang, the guy goes on the air. He gives you a good one or two lines where you know exactly where he's coming from. It makes us all laugh, and then he's gone. That's the best caller in the world.
What is your least favorite type of caller? I hate when people call up and go, hey, Boomer, remember me? 1983, we were at Friendly's. I saw you eating a strawberry ice cream.
Yes, that guy. And then also the one that has to give you the entire resume of them being a fan, so it validates their opinion more, or at least they think it does. Like, I've been a season ticket holder since 1963. I used to go to the Polo Grounds, you know, like, I'm like, Jesus Christ. You know, like I I saw Mickey Mantle play T-ball. Like, all right, fine. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, what you've gone through in your life doesn't matter to the show right now. Very rarely does it. So yeah, but you're right. That one, Boomer, you remember me? You're the best, Boomer. Yeah, it was in the ATM vestibule in Little Neck. Like, oh shit, you know. And then one day I just decided to go with that. Like, I think it might have been one of the days of like the quarantine days where nothing was going on. I was like, you know what? Let's just take every caller who's ever had an experience with Boomer and just rifle through them. And the funniest was some guy called. He said his friend was living in the woods outside of Rutgers somewhere, because I don't know why he was living in the woods. He was living in the woods. He came out of the woods, saw Boomer at a bar, beat him in an arm wrestle, and then went back to the woods. And I was like, that's all right. Nobody can top that one. Ever.
I remember that one. That was a good one. You were known, and you still are known for doing amazing impersonations. Who are your favorite impersonations to do?
You know what one is my favorite right now is a little bit of an obscure one. I mean, I always like doing Mike and Joe because that people really enjoy that. But my favorite to do right now is actually the Sean Marks when he's talking to Evan Roberts as a child. Like, for whatever reason, that cracks me up more than anything, where, we'll play a Sean Marks clip and then I'll just pretend like Sean Marks thinks that Evan is like a 10-year-old with a radio show. It'll say, all right, little boy, I hope everything's okay with your mommy and daddy. We're going to get you a little T-shirt and a hat, and and you'll root on your knits. Hope you eat all your vegetables and drink your milk and build up those bones. So, like, for whatever reason, like that one, it's different. It's weird. It's strange. I know. But, like, any opportunity I get to do the Sean Marks talking to Evan Roberts as if he's a child Nets fan is my favorite right now.
Yeah, always great. No doubt about it. Now, obviously, the pandemic, you guys are working from home. And, Boomer couldn't wait to get you back in the studio. But deep down inside, how great was it to be from home, extra sleep, no commute, go down into your studio here? What was that like for you?
Well, with the weather being nice, the warm weather, it was tremendous. There's no two ways about it. Like, it was great. The show didn't suffer at all, in my opinion. When I could get off the air at 10 o'clock and be able to do something outside, it was the greatest. And then, of course, the sleep, an extra 2 hours of sleep. There's no two ways. Anybody that would tell you differently in that particular situation is lying. But now, quite frankly, where the weather isn't great, even though today is a nice day, but generally the weather sucks, and you're in your house all the time, and the cases are back up and everything else. Like, I look forward to now going to work. So, like, even like March and April when it first started, I was getting a little antsy then too. Like, I wanted to go back to work. But the summer, I mean, June, July, August, September, I mean, even October when the weather was nice. I mean, it was great. Of course it was great. It was 7 months that I thought that I'd never have. But right now, quite frankly, I could not do it during these months. I could not do the show from home and be mentally healthy in January, February, March, and April again. It's just, it's impossible. I mean, everybody loves the extra time you get with your family. I've gotten so much of that I never thought that I had, but just, you need to, especially, I mean, I'm not 65, I'm 38. So I still have like some energy and be able to do some stuff. So you get up, have something to do, have some purpose, go into work is like a life changer during these months.
Yeah, I think it's great to be able to get the extra sleep, and I could definitely see what you're saying there as far as want to get the face-to-face communication. Now, do you have any aspirations to maybe do some stand-up or some sort of live shows and whatnot?
Man, I thought about stand-up many years ago, but then if you learn anything about like stand-up, the greatest stand-up comedians, like in their experiences, it sounds miserable. Like the amount of failure that you have to go through, and then like every single one of them seems tortured. So I don't know if I'd be any good at it. I do love the fact, like the times we do live shows and stuff, it's really exhilarating, and it fires you up, and to see the fans there and everything, but they're fans of the show. That wouldn't be the same thing in a comedy situation. I mean, maybe once I'll try to do it along the way just to see, but like, and there's different, the other thing is too, like, I don't know if I could be like, in order for me to be really good at that, I'd have to be 100% honest about everything going on in my life. And I don't know if I want to take that risk. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know if I don't want to like tear down every thought that's in my head doesn't have to be out of my head. And I think in order for me to be great at that, I would have to empty out my head. And I'm not sure that I think that that's something that I'm willing to deal with at this stage of my career.
The next Francesca Con that can get you out there. I think that's the perfect audience for you.
Yeah, that was. I went to one of those actually. I was supposed to go up there and do. This is before Mike hated my guts completely. I was supposed to. They asked me to come and do like a Mike and Chris back and forth thing, but then Mike showed up earlier than expected, so my thing got pushed back. And I was like, oh God! I was like, I came here for freaking nothing. Like I took the train in, I stood around, I like shook a couple of greasy hands, and then and then left. I was like, what a waste of a day.
Heard that it snowed, I think, or did it snowed? I think one of the previous days. That was the one I went to. He came in.